Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments by email. Please use dj@ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, G-Man, and I am Michael Lyons.
Yes, you are. And I'm Margaret.
And tonight it's part 5. Part 5 of the Prison series.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that old TV show, The Prisoner?
Yeah.
You guys can't get off the island. And tonight, no worries.
Right.
Hakuna Matata. Anyone who gets that was a child of the 90s? Maybe? Something like that. Anyway, we are doing part 5 in our prison series, and this one's the Prison of Anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And really it comes down to, unfortunately, Margaret, I think that this one is a very large prison.
Well, there's so many aspects and subtleties to anxiety.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people live in this one, is what I mean.
Yes, because it's allowed. You're allowed to live in anxiety.
It's allowed. It's encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
I think our modern society encourages an anxious frame of mind. It encourages people to constantly worry about the future and to always be planning.
Well, you're not caring enough unless you're worrying about your loved ones constantly.
Right, well, and then also about, what's going to happen tomorrow and what's on the schedule and what am I going to do, and all of these are very much ego I things. It's what am I going to do? What's going to happen to me? What things are on my agenda? It's all about the future and what I can do about it and how I'm going to plan for this contingency or that contingency. And it is encouraged. It's totally, if you find somebody who's thinking that they're doing a good job with their life and you ask them what they're up to, they're going to be just consumed with worry about the future.
Yes. Well, it's cultured, frankly.
Cultured, yes.
You are supposed to consider everything that could possibly go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And do it a few times just in case you miss something. You worry about worrying.
And buy this plan or that insurance or this
insurance.
Invest in this stock or this mutual bond, right. Or it's all about and people will say, well, I'm a doomsday prepper. I'm making sure that I have 5,000 cans of, I don't know, shoe leather or tuna fish or something in the basement, so in case things go sideways. And let's say that it's certainly a good idea to have an idea of planning, of looking towards what might happen.
Yeah.
But if you live there in the anxiety, in the stress, in the worry, you take everything out of the present moment. The present moment is only to be used for worrying about the moment that is not here and what could happen, what might happen, and what I can do right now to prepare myself for that basically imagination, that imagined potential situation in some unknowable future. And my current present moment is completely disregarded. Everything can be, you can have a beautiful day outside. I'm worrying about doomsday. You have a beautiful event to go to, and I'm signing insurance papers or my 401k. I'm worrying about what's going to happen in 6 months.
I have enough money to retire.
There's retirement planning. People spend their whole lives, or saving for college, Oh, we're putting everything towards little Johnny's college fund. And little Johnny is blissfully unaware that his whole future is being planned out. You yourself were placed into that kind of thing when you were young. That your whole future was being planned out for you, and if you didn't do it right, it was going to be a big problem.
Right.
And you had to worry about this and worry about that, and take care of this and take care of that.
I still remember when it finally hit my parents that I wasn't following the game plan that they had set out. My mom turned to me with tears in her eyes and said, "I had such a future for you." And I'm looking at her like, what are you speaking of?
Right. Isn't that a wonderful statement?
What illusion are you living at this point? Are you actually aware of what's going on right now? And it was always, well, yes, because you didn't listen, now that you don't have an assured future, as if her planning was going to give me an assured future.
Isn't that the nub of it?
Mm-hmm.
That the whole idea of this planning is that you're assuring what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
And it's such a fallacy.
Yes.
And people invest so much time in it that they believe it to be true. And then when it doesn't happen, which it often does not, and life hands you something which you couldn't have prepared for, but you might have spent a lot of time preparing for every other blessed thing. And then when you get the thing that actually happens and you're completely unprepared, people are devastated.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, again, there was no boundaries. It's the result of living in a family where the only thing that matters is what the family tells you. You don't have an identity, but they feel that they have to give you your identity, which is a weird thing to me because it seems to be a reflection of what we're seeing right now, where people are deciding their child's future by designating a pronoun. And you're like, wait a minute.
Well, that's another. But I think it goes.
But it goes back to the fact that you're not even, the child's too young to even be consulted on this. And you may be the parent, but something like that, and you're assuming that the child's going to speak English, is so mental, so far out the cane of the baby's going to need diapers and something to eat and some safety points so it can be rocked to sleep. And I mean, that's the immediate issue.
The present moment.
The present moment.
Right. But it's equally false to do what, let's say, in your example, what your parents did for you is to plan a future for each one of your children. The classic example is that you live vicariously through your children so that they have no present moment and actually are not living an independent life. You mentioned it just a moment ago. It's this codependency, this no boundaries. That's what
boundaries.
Codependency in families is, where the boundaries, let's say, between parent and child are basically non-existent. Now, in the beginning, Margaret just mentioned it, when a child is born, those boundaries are non-existent for the child. They don't understand that they're separate from mom.
Right.
But it is incumbent upon you as the adult to teach them that they are their own independent person, that they have their own path through life, that the moment of now is a precious moment. But instead, people are also encouraged, or at least it does happen very often, where the life of the child is no more than an extension of all the perhaps unrequited opportunities that the parent felt that they missed out on. So you'll find, fathers perhaps, or parents in general, living vicariously through their children. They put them in a particular sport, or they put them in a particular discipline, piano or something, because they always wanted to be, a pitcher or a concert pianist. But isn't that just the most controlling and really it's a form of just of ignoring the individuality of the person. It's a form of chattel. I hesitate to say slavery, but you're in essence taking a person's independence and crushing it into the mold that you want them to be in.
Right.
And you get silly statements like, "I had such a future planned out for you," and you've ruined it. So there's two horrible things there. One is that you felt that you could plan the future out for this person, and that they had nothing to do but follow the plan or ruin it.
Right.
Both things are wrong.
Well,
at a fundamental level.
Right.
Both things deny the present. Both things deny the independence, the unique soul ownership of you that you have. You are your own owner. You are your own person. And even though a parent is so intimately connected with you at an extremely young age, you have to give your children what you yourself would want: independence.
Well, as I said, you were blessed to be brought up in a family and a society that valued your individuality and recognized you as a human being, a person. But that wasn't the case for my upbringing. So, you begin to understand as you mature that you are walking in these different pathways, different bubbles, different of culture, and what's required of each one. And they will tell you that, this is what I had planned for you, and you should listen to me because I know better.
Mm.
And as a small child, you realize, of course, you don't know what's going on out there, and you listen. But that attitude is constantly given over and over and over again, even to the point of when grandma or grandpa are adult. You're still supposed to...
Hey there.
What?
Well, I'm not adult.
I didn't call you adult.
People call me grandpa, though.
How did this become about you?
I don't know. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry to have... So when grandpa and grandma become adult...
They're older, and they still push their advantage, saying, let me use the money that you have in your hand, and we'll use it for this.
Hmm.
And they do that, and it turns out that they were not, how to say this, what they said would happen didn't happen, but they felt no compulsion to give back what it was that they took in their hands.
Because they owned it, in essence. You owed it to them.
Right.
These things are on their face wrong, and but they violate, because they violate a basic tenet of humanity, is that you are your own person. But I think we've gone a little bit off the track. But the point here... Go ahead, sorry.
Anxiety, just in general. It's understanding that, first and foremost, you can't control everything. But your mindset, the mindset of believing that if you worry about it, you're actually controlling it. That's the interesting point to me.
Even doing something. That worry is somehow doing something.
Right. You're thinking endlessly about what could go wrong.
But I mean, literally, people will say, "I worried about it. Isn't that enough?" And taking this anxiety as though it were action, you know?
Well, giving this thought process more weight, more gravitas than it actually is.
Mm.
Because reality will do exactly what it will do. What happens, happens.
Mm.
Whether or not you thought about it isn't the issue, because you think, in thinking about it, somehow you control this.
Right.
And no, you don't. What it is this wave is coming in, and you thinking about it, you are the surfboarder on the top of the wave, riding the wave. You have the ability to make minute adjustments, but you can't stop the wave.
Mm.
The wave is coming into shore, whether you like it or not.
I like that analogy for another reason, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're the surfer on the wave, and the proper use of planning is to train yourself how to surf.
Right.
In other words, learn through experience and through thinking. This is the proper use of the mind to analyze an action and say, how could I have done that better? Well, next time I'll do it this way. I'll try this, or I've learned by looking at others, or I've learned through my own experience. So you become a better surfer. But the problem is the mind wants to extend, the ego wants to extend and say, well, I know what the next wave is going to look like, and I know how big it is and how high it is, and I'm going to ride it this way, and I'm going to take it that way, and the next wave is going to be the best one, and everyone else doesn't understand the waves the way I do. And all that is conceit, rather than if you hone your skill and realize that we have no idea what the next wave is, but I'm going to prepare myself to be the best surfer of waves, the best dealer with reality.
Well, the whole idea when you're surfing is that you want the best ride you can possibly get out of this wave.
Yes.
It's a simple thing, very simple. So what can I do in order to prolong my ride? What can I do to challenge myself? Can I get into that curl? What can I do to, what happens if I shift my weight a little more forward or a little backward, et cetera, et cetera. It's just understanding that with every wave coming in, you want the best ride you can possibly get.
And you train yourself to understand that the wave is a force of nature. The wave is what it is, and every one of them is different. And your mind's the right application of the skill of your mind, of the power of your mind, is not to worry about what the next wave is going to be. It's as Margaret just said, is to understand as much as you can as the wave comes up, and be able to whichever way life takes you, whichever way this wave comes, whether it's a monstrous wave that looks like it's going to crush you, or just a little ripple, to get the best ride out of it, which means go, Tully says this all the time, Margaret, go with it as though you had chosen it, that this is the wave, this is the current moment of reality. It's the big wave or the little wave. It's the wave from Husakai in the woodcut, the giant wave, the annihilating wave, whatever it is.
Tsunami.
The tsunami coming towards you, and say, I'm going to get the best ride out of that. Christopher did that. The tsunami of his illness, he got the best ride he could out of it. And a lot of those kids did, because they understood that this was their wave.
Right.
This was their wave. Did they anticipate it? Did they say, I want to be sick, I want to be in the hospital? No. But once they're there, they're on that wave, and they were riding it. They weren't worrying about, well, if it only had been another wave, if it only had been a green wave, if maybe I could get off this wave and get on another wave, maybe if I just find a little exit door and go through the back of the wave, and then there's another wave behind that one.
Well, yes.
No.
But that is the point. This is what the mind does, because it's desperately searching for a way to control the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're walking through life, you must accept that there are things in the ebb and flow of your life that you just can't control. But you can get the best possible ride out of it.
Mm.
You can get the best possible experience of what it means to be alive. Mm. And being alive does not mean that you worry about whether or not you did something that was right according to what you were looking at. Did I wax my board properly? Did I, just, it doesn't play into it, because in the moment, whatever the moment may be, and the ride of your life may just catch you with your board not completely perfect as you wanted it to be. But understand that you start here, let go, and experience every moment of what's unfolding in front of you, where you're being ridden to, you're on this eddy and flow of energy, and how can you possibly experience this?
Notice what Margaret didn't say. It wasn't about outcomes.
No.
The key is the journey. It sounds trite, but that's it. The wave comes. You'll never see it coming. You'll never see it coming, because we cannot see the future. The mind thinks it can, but it cannot. So the wave comes. And as she said, you're not perfectly prepared. Your board isn't whatever you wanted it to be. You're not, it isn't the right time, People say, well, it's not the right time for this. I'm sorry. Reality is, it doesn't care about time. Reality is the isness of now. The wave comes. You're not prepared. You have to just take that in. That's part of the experience. Part of the experience is I wasn't prepared. Part of the experience is the wave's bigger than I thought it would be. Can I, the fear that rises then is, can I do it? And if you're in the proper attitude, that's the preparation. You go with it. You say, this is my wave. I'm going to be in this moment with this wave. And it's a wonderful analogy, because you don't even know in the next instant of that wave whether it's going to turn, whether it's going to curl, whether it's going to break, what it's going to do. And there's no mind there. The wave isn't deciding. It just is. People say, well, the wave was out to get me. No. Why me? Why not you? You're in the ocean. A wave comes. Well, it didn't hit those guys. Nope. It's your wave. Mm-hmm. It's your wave.
When it's you, it's you.
Oh, God. In our book, we ran into just a stranger, a little gentleman in a restaurant, and he said those words to us at a very crucial moment. And he said the whole quote, if it's you, it's you, and if it's not you, it's not you. And he just kind of went away. It was a message, if you think of it from that point of view, of the isness of now.
Well, in essence, he's basically saying, this is the wave coming in for you guys. Ride it. That's it. You can't pick and choose the wave you're going to ride, because that's not your purvey. This is where you are in this space and time. This influx is coming in. You got to handle it the best way you know how.
And the other part of wisdom there, Margaret, was that he said, if it's your wave, it's your wave. And if it's not, it's not. And you don't get to choose whether it's your wave. The wave will be there. If it's yours, it'll be there. And you'll be there.
Right.
And in the true moment of now, in the being state in the heart, You know when it's your wave.
Right.
There's no denying it. The mind wants to say, well, I don't want that wave.
No, in your heart, you sit there and you go, oh, okay.
It's my wave.
That's where we are. We're here. And you go with it. And you can't look back or forward. And that's where the anxiety, worry, and stress comes in.
Right.
Because when you're in a point where you realize how big this wave is, this happening to you,
right,
it's huge. You have no control.
Right.
And the head wants to spin into, well, if I had done this, maybe this child would never get sick. Or was he exposed to something that I could have prevented?
Right.
Or could I have anticipated this treatment a little bit better so he's not in so much pain? It's endless.
Endless.
It's endless. And the truth of the matter is, you only have this moment to make your decision. And the ones that are doing the old-fashioned pros and cons method of making a decision, these are my pros, I've got 3 reasons. These are my cons, I got 6 reasons against. So that means I shouldn't do it. It doesn't work that way. No. It just doesn't, because you're thinking in terms of somehow you thinking about it will extend the amount of time that you have to act in. Mm-hmm. And your choice has got to be instantaneous, right in that moment of now.
Right.
Occasionally, you are given the luxury, and I put that in air quotes, mind you, of reasoning your way into what action you're going to take, what protocol, what series, whatever. But you will always have doubts when you do it that way. What if I had done it this way? Because you're making the decision out of worry and stress and maybe I'll miss something.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being in the moment and saying, all right, this is what I'm presented with. Which of these options allows for the best freedom and possibility for this person, whether it's you yourself or your child? What is available right now? And what has heart?
What has heart?
What is it that has heart? And especially if it's your child, you can actually ask them, what do you think about this? What do you feel? Because they're the ones that have to undergo it. Whoever's got to walk the path should have a say in what's going to happen. And even in those circumstances, people would tell us, oh, why are you telling him all this? You should just make the decision and not tell him. And these are doctors that are telling me this. I look at them like, no. No. And they're looking at it in terms of, oh, well, your child's too young to understand all the intricacies of this. I'm looking at them going, you guys, you've got qualifications out your wazoo when it comes to the research and the development against cancer. And I can't understand what you're talking about. Yet you want me to make the decision without consulting the person that's got to endure this.
Mm-hmm. But as you said, it's the path that has heart.
Right.
And if it's incumbent upon you to explain it in such a way that he understood it, and that's what is the heart path. You are there to interpret and make sure that the person who is actually having to go through something understands and makes that heart level decision.
Right.
Because the heart is the heart. The heart has, you know when something's right.
Right. And this is, okay. the heart path that we're speaking of is not just, well, I feel like this or I feel like that right now. Okay? It has a lot to do with the whole of you. It is all of you making this decision. It's not just one piece of you. It is your mind which thinks, and your soul which feels, and your body which is taking the brunt of this, and your spirit which is right there and observing it all. The heart path means that all that is incorporated, the way we are using it in these terms. And because there are different interpretations of what heart means for different modalities and different religions and different cultures. Our definition of heart is a complete integration of who you are and then making that decision. And all of you says yes. There's no doubt. And I don't know of a lot of people who can say that they have walked that, where everything in you says, we choose this, and that's it.
It's very important that the point you just made is beyond compare, and I want to be careful with my words. The doubt, all of the prison of anxiety is fueled by doubt.
Yes.
And doubt is another form of fear. When you doubt yourself, or when you doubt the decision, you look for reassurances. You say, well, I'm doing the right thing. Everyone says it's the right thing. The doctor said it should be this way. The insurance company said it'll be that way. And okay, so all of my doubts, all my fears have been assuaged. But still, there's like, well, just a little bit of doubt. But it's much less. It's okay now. Very little doubt. When you are in the heart level, what we're talking about here is a decision made in awareness, in the moment of now, and there's no doubt, not because you say there's no doubt because it is what needs to be done. Even if what needs to be involves suffering, involves pain, involves the harder road, it's not what you would even choose were you given a choice. You're not given a choice. You're given a moment of now. And the heart says, this way. It doesn't say it in so many words. It says this way. This is what must be. And what must be, as was so beautifully expressed in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Christ said, I don't want this, basically. But if you want it to be, if it must be, if I must drink from this cup, then your will be done. The will that we're talking about here, although it's been very many ways, put in very different poetic ways, the will that we're talking about here is what must be. The actions that the heart demands are not the easy road. They're the must be road. When the wave comes, the wave has it's an energy. It's moving through the universe. It's carrying you along. You must be with the wave, and it will change you, but you have the ability in that moment to understand that you are able to move with that wave in different ways. It will take you through an experience. If you are riding the wave properly, it feels effortless, even though it may be the hardest thing you ever did, because it's what needs to be. You're in the wave. You're in the moment. And when people would look at us, Margaret, and we were making, Christopher and the two of us, but really Christopher was making a decision to do something which they all said, well, no, it's this, it's that, it's 90% this way, it's 70% that way, it's 65% that way, you should probably give up. And we'd say, okay, we understand, okay, all that. This is what we're going to do. This is what must be. We had gotten beyond that point of worry, and we had gotten into the heart point of what had to be. And that's where you don't have fear, you don't have doubt, but you do have a path.
Right. Right. There is no doubt in those steps. You just go.
Just go. You know what? Let's take a moment, because we're getting pretty heavy here, and go back to the studio. Don't worry, though, because we will be back on the other side. We're going to take a little break, and we'll talk more about the prison of anxiety.
This is The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lons.
And thank you very much, C-Man. And we are talking tonight about one of our prison series. These are getting really good. These are great prisons we've got here.
Okay.
And this is the prison of anxiety. And as we mentioned in the last half hour, the current the zeitgeist of the times, where we are in our current society in the West and perhaps everywhere, is we encourage people to worry about everything. And we talked a little bit about what we went through and how we kind of dealt with that. But I want to kind of back a little bit more into the more common experiences, and you'll see that a lot of what is used to sell things to people is worry. And it's anxiety. It's how will you deal with this situation if it arises? Well, our product, the XYZ thing, will solve that problem for you. So, the idea of selling people control, which is what all of this is about. When you're talking about the prison of anxiety, really it's the prison of doubt, which you mentioned in the last half hour, the prison of fear about the unknown future. And when people are confronted with the unknown future, that's what rises up, this energy of fear. Well, what if this happens, or what if that happens? And then oftentimes there will be a product which purports anyway to be able to deal with that fear. And the mind just latches onto that. Okay, well, if we do this, and we have this insurance or this type of investment, we are completely guaranteed that it's going to all work out great, because they told us it would.
Right.
And so,
you bought the line.
No hurricane can hit us, and no financial disaster can harm us, because we have the XYZ product. And, we found out viscerally that none of that was true. But it was it was shocking. It was deeply
true.
it was deeply disruptive,
unsettling.
And then it was surreal.
Yeah.
Okay. When the wave came in that took us out of our happy little, we've got the right insurance and the right policies and the right schools and the right this and the right that, and we have everything under control. When the wave came in and took us out of that and washed right through us and tore everything up like a giant hurricane, it was deeply disruptive, and then it was also very, very deeply disorienting. We everything was what had been an orderly little life, unremarkable, turned into a maelstrom, and largely because the mind was fighting against this disruption and saying, how can it be? And the first thing that rises up is, why me? Why? We had everything under control. Now it's all a disaster. And then you sit in this sort of desolate place, like Job sitting amidst the ruins and looking at everyone else having a wonderful life, and you're saying, no one else has these problems. It's just me. Why me? Why my child? Why my life? Why this? Why that? And all of that is to are the bars of that prison, the prison of anxiety. And even the lamentations of why me, and could I have, as Margaret said, the regret of could I have done this and couldn't I have done that and shouldn't I have had this policy and maybe I should have done all that giant churning mess is just keeping you in that prison. And when it finally breaks, there's a moment at which you can look back and say, yeah, all that was a lie. All of it.
Well,
all of it was a lie.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the you that was operating in the past in its very comfortable bubble. And suddenly the wave comes by and shows you the larger expanse of what reality actually is, and you have no control. So do you go with it, or are you fighting it all away?
Initially, it's completely overwhelming, and you feel as though part of you dies in that moment, because the part of you that you feel is the existential part of you that dies is this fantasy of control, this idea that you were some sort of a self-determining future proof good person. Right? That's always it's always about I'm a good person. Why this shouldn't happen to me. I've done nothing wrong. I've done everything that was asked of me. I've made every contingency, and yet still it hit me. And those lies are extremely toxic, and they damage you in ways, both taking away from the present moment, because we saw many people, Margaret, who were so stuck there that they couldn't see the present moment, the need, the essential need to accept this and then understand that your child needed you. No, they were just stuck in this why me and couldn't I have done this and couldn't I have done that, and railing against their fate, looking for the exit, trying to get back into the comfortable bubble. And in essence, running away from the moment of now and leaving those who were, damaged and wounded and needing them in the battle, in the fight, completely without any support.
Right.
And they had to be supported. They fell into baskets. They were the ones who took all the energy out of the situation with this why me nonsense. Toxic.
Well, it feels like a death. When what you thought was real suddenly, in no uncertain terms, is shown to you that it's an illusion. The illusion that your child is healthy. The illusion that, only sickness happens to certain people.
Never me.
It's not me, because there's nothing wrong with us. And all these comfortable little thoughts that you just stuffed in a bag and you carry around, like, oh, I'm fine, and that fear of, okay, I'm going to be more fine when I buy this insurance. I'll be more fine when I work over in this area, or I get this other degree, or I, send my child to this school and they'll learn stuff that they're going to need, and they'll be able to conquer life with all, I'm going to arm them with all these tools. And it's all a mind concept. It's something that you have painted a shadow play. It reminds me of Plato's cave. That's all shadow play on the wall. The projection, the light source doesn't even come from you. It's projected in front of you. And then you're sitting there and you're interpreting the shadows that you see as something. Whereas the life that is you is so much more than just that shadow play. It could be amusing, the shadow play. It occupies you for a bit. But when something takes you out of your comfort zone, what is your reaction? I mean, just in general, what is your reaction? Are you looking at it going, wait a minute, I must have missed something.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go and see so I can get back into what I know is real. And when the wave comes in and it becomes very apparent that you don't have control of that wave, that's when the screaming starts. The screaming of it's not fair. No one told me it was going to be this way. And, you know, there are many instances in life that come up with that kind of image. Anything from, one woman when we were in labor and she was in the bed next to us and she basically said, my mom said it wasn't going to hurt. Oh, she did she?
Did she?
In the meantime, the contractions are happening. And she's screaming.
Mom was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, you know, the ones that have gone through the coaching sessions, and then the reality hits. And so what are you really going to do when that wave of pain takes over? That's when you know what you're made out of, truthfully. Because there's no control. You have no control over your body. You used to have control in terms of I can get up and eat and get dressed and shower and do things. Now your body's going, nope, we're not doing any of that. Push. Because you're having a contraction. So things like that where people say one thing and then reality hits. So how do you respond when you're in a situation you can no longer control? Are you just going to scream about it and make things more difficult for yourself? It's like when it's like sitting on the surfboard and the wave comes in and suddenly you realize you're in trouble because you don't know what the heck you're doing. And what do you try to do? You wind up being thrown off the surfboard and floundering underwater. Hopefully you get to shore. But how or what have you done to fortify yourself when stress like that comes? And that's what I'd like to talk about now, if you don't mind. It is more along the lines of little things that help bring you back to focus. Instead of panicking, like, I can't control this, it's like, well, yeah, you can't. So you give that up. I can't control this. And usually what happens is the unknown stares at you. And that's a place that's very scary for everyone. There's just something out there, I don't know what it is, and it's scary. But realizing that you as a human being have control over your response to this moment. You choose in this moment what you're going to do, where you're placing your feet, what path. So the questions I always wind up asking is, what can I contribute to this moment in order to make, taking the analogy of the wave and the board, to make this ride the best it can be? What can I contribute? Is there something? And most people want to chalk that up to doing something. Okay, I'm going to do this. It's like, no, sometimes what the absolute best thing to do is to be able to center yourself You've already decided that fear is not going to have a hold on you because it's useless.
May I stop you for 1 sec? I think the very first thing you did, and this is just, I want to emphasize the point, you accept the situation. You accept the wave. You accept it. But then what Margaret said, the superpower you have is that you always get to choose how you respond. So that there's two things which happen in the instant, and these are the two most important things. You can't control the wave, but you can control you. And the two things you get to do almost instantaneously, almost at the same moment, is accept that this is where you are, and what am I going to do? How am I going to contribute? Or what's the best thing? Accepting everything. Say, yep, this is where I am. What's the best thing I can do to make this the best wave ride possible? Because the wave is here.
Right.
And if you fight against it, you're just going to get bounced.
Right. You're just going to be battered on the rocks. So every moment that came up, you opened in that moment to, okay, I can't control that, but I can manage this. So you open up and you ask internally, what can I do to help this situation? Now, going back to our experience with Christopher, was always, what can I do to help him manage the situation? What choices are available for him to make? What interpretation can I give him to allow him to understand the circumstances that he's in and the options that the doctors are giving us? Explanations that way. And that grace that came in to explain a situation so that my 5-year-old understood what was actually at stake. And I'll say this again because we've spoken about this before. But he did ask, what is death? And he understood that they were talking about he may die from this. So what is death then? If I can die from this, what is death? Now you're 5. Usually your typical 5-year-old isn't really thinking about it. Maybe a pet or a goldfish died, and that was the extent of their experience, or maybe a grandfather or grandmother. But death for the child. So opening up my heart and asking, please, what interpretation can I give him so that he may understand what death actually is? And in those moments, that is when the heart responds. The divine heart and the spirit comes in and gives you the words. All right? In a nutshell. We wrote about this in the book. In a nutshell. Chris was explaining that death is just like when we're trying to fix the house and we're replacing doors and windows and replacing things because they're not functioning anymore. There is a point where the house is no longer livable. Nothing works. Nothing does what it's supposed to. And that's when the people inside have to leave and go to a better place. And that's what death is. And he understood at that point that there is only so much you can do to maintain the house, the body. And then you just leave. He was never afraid of death. There was no worry or anxiety around that.
And that was grace brought in because in the moment of that question, you have to accept that. That's a wave. A question like that from your 5-year-old is a wave. And you could fight against it. You could tell them any kind of lie you wanted because they're going to trust you. But if you give them what they need in that moment, which is an understanding, but something that will be useful but not scary, it's beyond precious.
Yes. Yes. And unfortunately, we have reached the end of our hour.
Don't worry about it, though.
No, I'm not worried about it. So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael, and maybe we'll do another prison. Because these prisons are hard to get out of. And thank you very much for listening.